Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for Silo Season 1, Episode 7. The Flame Keeper's an appropriate name because this episode was fire. So much good stuff. I love this episode. It got me really intense. It got me very worked up at times. I was very nervous that terrible things were going to happen. See, I can't explain my love for this show in like mere words just because it is so bizarre, and yet at the same time, I'm all in on the world. I'm so curious how they're going to be able to tie all this together. This is such a big high risk, high reward that come the finale, I am either going to be in like a state of elation or I'm going to be upset and inconsolable beyond words.
One of the things that this show does so well is that they will introduce a mystery,
Yeah.
but then they will tie up a mystery and then give you another one. They don't of course there's overall arcing mysteries like what happened to Allison
Yeah.
Holston, sure, but they are really good at giving a mystery in one episode and then tying up that mystery and then giving you another mystery. There's very few shows that have been able to figure out how to do that in a way that's as satisfying as it is on this show. This show is great. Now, I really enjoyed this episode. I didn't enjoy it as much as you. There was a couple of things that I was kind of like, that doesn't make sense for this world, where I was kind of like, I don't get it. Like, why would they make this choice? And we're going to talk about that. Like, keeping Gloria alive. She's the last flame keeper, but we're going to keep her alive, sort of thing. I was like, I don't know, but
Okay. We will talk about that. But since you mentioned the idea of Allison and Holston, where are they? What happened to them?
yeah.
We have a video all about that on our Patreon. If you checked out the link below, it is an exclusive Silo discussion that
Mhm.
can be had over there. It is a place for a lot of exclusive video content. Thank you guys so much who have supported us there already. We really do appreciate it a ton.
Absolutely. And if you're enjoying Silo, we're also covering From here at the channel. We've got some stuff over on our Patreon with that too.
Yeah.
Dead City's coming up, so we're going to be covering that as well, and Black Mirror. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow us over on our Patreon for even more videos.
Okay, let's get into your bugaboo here with this episode in Gloria.
Okay, so here's the thing about this world and
Okay.
what they decided to do with Gloria. So you've got Gloria who's like, "Oh, I'm the last of the flame keepers," kind of thing. "I'm the last person that really knows like some stuff that's going on, and that I'm able to have this information." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." And that makes sense that they need to have one person that has information that can hand it over to Juliet. Otherwise, how does Juliet figure it out? Okay, cool. I understand why this is all happening.
Yeah.
But when you look at the structure of sort of silo society and keeping secrets, and why they can't have a lift and why they can't have relics, and why it's so important that people in the silo do not question anything that's happened outside, I don't believe that the silo or whoever's behind the silo or anybody within the silo would keep Gloria alive. I understand the idea that's like, oh, well, she's sedated and, whatever, she'll never talk. But it's like, why would they waste a resource to keep alive a person who can take down the entire silo, that can like turn more people over to her side, create rebellion, create problems? Like, it's one person. Why didn't they just take care of her? And because the way that this is all sort of structured, and maybe it hasn't been revealed yet, but in this particular episode, I wasn't convinced that whoever's behind the silo, or even the people in the silo, if this is a real society and it's exactly what they said it is, which I don't believe, but let's say that that's the case, and they don't want anyone talking about relics outside what happened
Yeah.
before. She's the only person with that information. She'd be disappeared. No way they're keeping her, that there'd be any sort of risk like we saw with the nurses. Like, oh, I just happened to miss your dose. Oh my goodness. That could be like, again, like a whole big problem where it's like she knows this information and she's now sharing this information. So somebody really messed up there with that, keeping her
Okay.
alive for why.
Here's where I land on a lot of this, because I don't disagree with you on the level of, sitting back after the episode, hearing you say this. I'm like, okay, yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense they would keep her alive. I will admit, when I was immersed in the episode, it didn't bother me. And I feel like the reason why a lot of that is that I think a lot from the standpoint of, if you're in the silo, how do you want to make this world feel immersive? And I'm not saying that this is a good decision that they made by any means, but I feel like what happened here is that in these people's infinite quote unquote wisdom, they were thinking, you know what, we're probably going to have to kill a lot of other people. We're really making sure a lot of things don't get out. If there is this person who already has a bit of a reputation, we just put them in this place. It sort of validates this place's existence a little bit more. It helps you to sort of see that there's not everybody in this same world who has the same point of view, and we feel like we can control her. We feel like it's going to be okay. Maybe on some level, and this is a big maybe, they think that her knowledge of relics could be useful down the line, and that's a part of why they're keeping her alive.
I would buy into that 100%. If that comes out later where it's like, we think that she could be valuable down the road, I would absolutely be like, now that makes sense that they're going to keep her alive. But like, if there's no reason for it, where it's just like, we don't want to kill any more people. We just want to keep up the illusion that, everything's going to be okay. Like, they could have found, they put it on Mayor Johns that she died walking the silo. Like, they just made up whatever. They could have made up whatever and just dropped her down the silo.
I feel like they could have, but I think they decided not to in this instance. I'm not going to give them as much credit as to say that my idea that they may use her in the future, like, I don't know if that's really it. I think it's just that they felt like they could control her. They clearly screwed up on that because they clearly could not control her in one little moment. And I think it's a reminder that sometimes to change the course of history, you just need one shot, one opportunity. Now I sound like I'm about to start going into Lose Yourself by Eminem, but no,
Yeah, I was about to say, this is like, what, the 8 Mile video
yeah,
now?
no, snap back to reality,
Yeah.
everybody. No, I feel a lot though, like, this was a very big risk that blew up in their face, but it also took an extreme amount of circumstances to get here. And this is the part of this that I really enjoy, is that just like I enjoy a great bank heist movie, I also really enjoy a great, I'm going to sneak into this compound, find a way to trick everybody along the way, and I'm going to get in it what I like. I just want a good stealth mission, and I think the planning and the execution of this by Juliet, awesome. Like, I love this stuff. One of my favorite parts of this episode, and maybe even the season.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
I just love this sort of sequence. I think how she pulled this off was really interesting. How she even had to deal with her own, like, freaking dad in the midst of all of this while she's finding out that her dad sucks in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was very interesting to find out this stuff about her dad. I mean, we already knew some of it from Allison and,
Yeah.
when she had her, birth control taken out,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. And, Gloria had the same thing happen. When all of that was sort of revealed and the father's excuse to Juliet was just kind of like, well, we just people needed to have like some hope, but then they were using it to punish them because they were, people who wanted more knowledge. I was just like, that's not why they were doing that. To me, it feels like tinfoil hat theory.
Yeah.
Why? Because Juliet was like, why just not let them win the lottery sort of thing? Like, why just not give them a chance? Just be like, sorry, you're not on the list sort of thing, and just stop it in its tracks. The reason why this went through, in my opinion, is to keep them busy. That it's like, oh, Allison, you have a year now to try, and you've had it for 3 years
Yeah.
now. We'll let you try. That's 3 years that she's not digging into anything, and it gives her something to do. It keeps her busy, and it changes her focus from focusing on, the hard drive or anything else that could have been going on, because now she's focused on having a baby.
I think whatever the reason is that they're all in the silo, and clearly there's a big discussion to be had with that. But I think ultimately it all boils down to, yeah, that idea of we want you guys to all fall in line to do exactly what it is we want and need from you. And if we can distract you along the way, great. We'll distract you along the way. We'll find a way to make that happen.
Okay, let's talk about that father because he
Yeah.
said something very interesting in that nursery. So, he decides he's going to help. He brings Gloria to this nursery, and, Juliet's in there and they're all able to talk to her. And he says, no one's listening in the nursery. And I was like, how do you know that? Like, why would you say that? Like, you clearly have way more information than you're willing to kind of tell anybody. It feels like it was kind of a slip to be like, nobody's listening in here. Why do you know that?
I think it is a slip, and I think that's why, this is clearly not a great guy, but I think everybody is complicated, and,
I agree.
his daughter is a certain weakness to him to some extent, and I think that's something that slips up there, and I think there's probably more we could figure out with Juliet's dad down the road, but the conversation that we see play out here, where Juliet is just told by Gloria, this is called the ocean. That just like emotionally just like got me all choked because I was just like, she doesn't even know what the ocean is. I just felt so sad, and this was
I
so.
know, and the ocean's like your favorite
I
thing. Like last year for Matt's birthday,
Yes,
it was like, what do you want to do? Ocean.
it's on my shirt. Like I love the ocean, and it just really made me sad. And it's ultimately though, this is so important just because it's a real reminder of the divider between this reality and the actual reality. And I think it's obviously going to incentivize Juliet further to be like, okay, I really got to get some element of answers now. Or here's something so simple that everybody else knows, but for some reason I don't know it. And I love how they played this too, where it's like Gloria gives her this information and she learns a few different things about who the Flame Keepers were,
Yep.
how they've been sort of hiding their relics, how they're sort of holding on to these ideas of what the old world is. At the same time, you still don't actually know that that old world still exists. And that's why we still don't have that connective tissue at this point where it's like, yeah, there was an ocean, there was some other great things. Maybe they're not there anymore. You don't actually know. We're still in the dark with that.
What's also interesting was the connection to Juliet's mother, which Juliet didn't really realize was there, and that she unalived herself, and that's something that she wasn't as aware of what's going on. And I mean, how much connection does her dad know? Like, it's opened up this whole new mystery.
And I think that's something we'll get some answers to this season, but I think where I'm most excited, nervous, interested coming out of all of this is that this show has kind of slow played a lot of things. And I've seen some comments being like episode 3 or 4, like that period, things were moving along too slowly. The end of this episode is so big and so seismic that it feels like we are going in a completely different direction now. Like we are going into like full on chase thriller for the rest of this, where yeah, maybe Juliet can get some answers and I'm sure she's going to fight for it. But I feel like at the same time, she's just got to survive at this point.
Oh, yeah, I was okay, so, like, I was just so surprised by one of the decisions she made. So she started to put together
Yeah.
that people were watching and that, her vase got broken by maintenance in her place, and then she's back with Gloria in Gloria's room, and she's like, "Oh, the flowers are gone. Like, that's really weird. Holston used to come in and put flowers right here, and now all of a sudden they're missing." And she remembers the note of double the flowers, and she realizes that somebody's watching her. And I was like, okay, so how is she going to deal with this situation? Is this going to be like I'll be right back and, get my purse and put it right in front of the mirror? Like, how is she going to actually deal with this situation? I did not expect her to just take a blanket and throw it over the mirror, because then at that point, she's basically like, I know that you're watching me. You know that you're watching me. Come get me. she's just thrown it all into the fire at that point instead of kind of sneaking around and finding another way around it. She's just like, nope, we're all in now. Everybody's hands in the middle. Let's go. Puts a thing over the mirror, opens the grate, finds the hard drive. And I'm like, okay, well, she can't be the sheriff anymore. Like, if we go into this next episode and they're all like, oh, we're all just gonna pretend like everything is like, no, that can't happen now. She has basically straight out been like, I know what you're doing and I'm against it. She's a rebel now.
She is basically the person who quit their job, cursed out their boss, like kicked over the garbage can.
Yeah,
and
they absolutely she is. She went out in a ball of flames.
yeah, to me, I'm just moving forward now with the idea that, okay, you can't be the sheriff anymore. You can't do what it was you were doing because there's no turning back from all of this. It is a very gutsy move doing what she did. And we can all argue as to whether or not, okay, this is the right move. Why did you do this? Like I think it's partially a character flaw in her that she can be a little bit hard-headed. She can be a little bit headstrong. She can be definitely a little bit bold, and you gotta be bold. I think ultimately,
But she can also be really sneaky, and she has found ways to do stuff like that. That's why I was like, how is she going to handle this? I did not expect her to do what she did.
I'm
It was
guessing,
shocking.
this is just a guess from me, but I'm guessing that she must have thought in that moment, okay, you know what? I have now reached the point of no return. They've probably been watching me for a while. They sort of know
Hmm.
everything I'm up to at this point. Nothing really matters anymore. I know they're coming. And yeah, it was easy to project how like they were gonna show up at Gloria's room and she wasn't gonna be there anymore. So it's like, all right, there's no surprise there. But now I am just losing my mind at where she's gonna go, what she's gonna do. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, go into Descend and hide in one of the tunnels at this point? Like, you're not gonna leave the silo. At least not yet. I don't believe that's gonna happen. But where exactly do you hide?
Yeah, and who does she go to with this hard drive? Because it was going to be George, obviously, and he's not there anymore. And I mean, they've got this like romance or whatever going with this other IT guy. It's, always in the cafeteria. And I'm just like, the almost kiss, I was just like, needs to not happen. Like, I'm not here for a Juliet romance. They already had everything
Yeah.
with George, and I'm not really interested in it. Like, it would have been more interesting if they just developed some kind of a friendship, because I'm assuming that's who's going to help her.
I would assume so too. I think especially because this is just my read on it is that I feel like he is
Unless she makes that walk all the way to the bottom to go talk to Martha.
yeah, I guess that's possible, but I'm leaning more with your IT idea just because I feel like he is very into her. I don't know if she is into him on the same level that he is into her.
She might just be a little shy about it at this point because she thought that George was someone that,
Yeah,
maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. She doesn't know. She has no way to
yeah.
ever really know that. Maybe now she's like, I'm not falling for this a second time.
Yeah, I also think she's probably going to be like at this point, you know what I don't have time for? Kissy face. I just need to get some stuff done. I think this is probably one resource that she can go to, but this is only going to work for so long. She needs to get some other allies. I think Billings is in a just a increasingly interesting spot here as things go along where I think on some level he wants to be his own person. I don't think he is just like full on this bad guy or anything like that, but I think he's obviously being played. I still believe in you on some level, Billings, and that may be a mistake.
You know who's a bad guy? Bernard. With him just sitting there trying to talk Juliet into being like, it's you and me, we against, Judge Meadows. I'm like, oh, get out of here. Like, why? What? No, listen, all of a sudden you're her best friend. You
Yeah,
mad at her for taking some tape and you held that over her head
yeah,
for all that time. And now all of a sudden you're like, it's you and me, kid. We're against Meadows, who I'm convinced is getting poisoned. like,
yeah.
like I know that they sort of had her hide that bottle and everything else that was going on, but like it really feels like she's also getting poisoned. And we know that that happened with Mayor Jean, so why can it not be happening here? Especially with that conversation with Juliet where she's saying there's more going on. I think it's exactly what you said, that she's kind of just this figurehead that doesn't really have any real power, and she knows that there are people above her that are really pulling the strings. It's basically what she said.
Yeah, I think she's mad frustrated, but I think at the same time, she knows that she's sort of trapped in this institution. There's nothing really she can do about it. And I think this is what also enables Juliet to kind of speak to her in the way that Juliet speaks to her, because I think in other situations, if you are really a person in power, this probably would not fly the same way that it ends up flying in this situation. See,
Yeah.
all this stuff was good. If I do have one thing that I was a little bit like, okay, I'm not as thrilled with the idea that Sims is the person who was in there with the group who was kind of
Wah,
watching.
wah, wah.
Yeah.
I felt that way too. Like, when I had that reveal at the last
Yeah.
episode, I was like, here we go. Oh my God, who could he be? Go get him.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness, look at these monitors. This is not the same thing that's going
Yeah.
on inside the silo. Like, who's the mole? Who could it be?
Yes.
And I know that they had kind of set it up with, the janitor's boy and don't go behind this door. And if you do, whatever. I was like, okay, well, Sims knows something, but I didn't expect it to be him. Where I was kind of like, oh, it is him.
I kind of wanted it to be sort of a fake out where he knew something, but he didn't exactly know that. And he's tied to something else that's going on. Maybe we have somebody who seems kind of meek and ineffectual, and they end up being sort of this secret string puller. And it's possible still that there are people roped into stuff that we don't quite know about. I mean, we do still have a few episodes to go, but yeah, I wanted maybe something a little bit more out of this. But once again, I think where we're left off now is in a spot where we'll probably get a few answers as time goes along.
Yeah.
But I think we have to see sort of more of a thriller at this point, where we have to see how Juliet can figure out how to stay in this place, if she is going to stay in this place. And there are other books that are out there. I think it's safe to presume there's going to be another season of this. So you gonna spend all this time in the silo, or are things really going to change soon?
Yeah, I mean, this show is really good at shifting things around. Like, we first met Juliet, she's down, sort of in mechanics. Then we've got her as the sheriff. Like, are we just going to see her as the sheriff for all the seasons that we get? I just don't know how she continues on as sheriff unless it's a situation where a Bernard steps in and is like, I need her to be able to keep the power that I want because, I got put in the position of mayor because, Mayor John just died, Bernard. Like, I think he wants to hold that power as much as he's denying it and like, oh, I don't really want to be here. I kind of got put in. Oh, stop it.
Hey, it's Bernard and Juliet against the world, remember?
Stop
They're in
it.
this together.
Get
Peace and
out.
love. Okay, no, everything is going to nowhere in a handbasket. We're excited for it. Hopefully you guys are excited for it. Let us know what you think is going on. If you haven't checked out our Patreon and our discussion about
Mhm.
Allison and Holston over there,
Yep.
lots of humdingers. Check out that link in the description. And thank you to everyone who has joined so far. We appreciate that so
Thank
much.
you.
And we'll see you here next time.